Check me out.
Y'all. So we're gonna have to do this again. You know, we had the chance to do this interview the first time, so now we're gonna go ahead and do it again because there's a lot of things going on. So I'm happy to welcome back once again a brilliant mind, brilliant entertainment lawyer of everything, Shannon Ligon. Thank you for coming back to grace us with your presence so we can talk about some good things and talk about some serious things that's going on right now.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
So, first of all, I want to congratulate you on your FIFA deal.
Awesome. So with FIFA, that's really a collaboration with the entertainment and sports lawyers section of the Florida bar I work with. FIFA is the international football, or soccer as we say in America, association, and they actually moved their offices from overseas to Miami in South Florida. So part of that process was their lawyers coming over and them opening up their legal offices. So we had been hosting them, introducing them to the powers that be, political influences, and all things sports and entertainment, because it's the biggest sports and entertainment event in the world.
Right.
So that was just a partnership with working with my colleagues that work in the entertainment and sports industries as well.
Okay. So is that something that's how you say? Is it contingent upon the long term of like the contract? Like, is this something where you guys we're gonna be in business for this amount of years?
So it's just how lawyers and business work. When you have a friend like moving in town, you help show them around who's who and things of that nature. So because their FIFA Cup games aren't until 2026, I believe they have series of games all across the United States.
Right.
So here in Florida, we were showing them these are the venues, this is where you should have your offices, these are the big players in the state, and then across the globe, other lawyers and businesses are showing them the ropes here in America, so to speak. So I think long term we just see the globalization of sports, right? So we saw basketball go overseas, then we saw football competing in Europe, and they have I think 2 annual games. So it's just the reverse that's happening, is that soccer and foreign sports are infiltrating into the Americas, even though they've always been here. Like I grew up playing soccer on a field right down the street. Right?
Me too, yeah.
So, this is just the globalization of entertainment and sports, and I actually had the opportunity to write about that. So this is just, business on its biggest level. So I'm hoping there's bigger partnerships, because we can just, look at our own, data and see, even America is, a global melting pot. So that's what's happening in sports, is that, our global sports are coming to America. So I look forward to the long-term business, even though there's a lot of political smoke now with immigration and executive orders and things like that. So it's a scary time, but it's a unique time, which is why, I think everyone should use their platforms, especially athletes and entertainers, to speak out about this. Because I have immigration friends that are fighting to keep their athletes here and keep them safe and keep their entertainers, safe while traveling abroad. So, it's a big political and I think spiritual warfare, but can't stop greatness.
Okay, but once again, congratulations on it. That's still something big.
Yes, thank you.
So there's some things that's going on right now. You got the Diddy case going on. You got Tory Lanez and Megan Thee Stallion things again. So I'm not gonna get you to try to cover everything per se. Certain people are speaking on certain things, but I'm not gonna try to go too deep into it. You know what I mean? So looking from like a legal side of things, right? Let's talk about Tory and Meg's situation right now. I'm seeing certain people say with certain evidence that came out, how would Tory still be able to get convicted the way he did? So my question to you, so people will learn more about legal side, right? With the jury being able to say guilty or not guilty, right? Does it really matter about the evidence as much, or is it more so about what the jury is convicting him of or saying that he's guilty or not guilty in that situation?
So I think it's important we look at the space and the scope of where this case is. So part of it is, like you said, this is post-jury verdict. This went to a jury of his peers. They heard the evidence they had at that time, and they decided on that. Now we're at post-verdict. So then we look at what rights do a defendant have. So I've done criminal defense, federal, state, civil, all of that. And I got into it because of working in entertainment and sports. Unfortunately, athletes and entertainers, I feel like they're unfavorably scrutinized, right? So that's how I got into criminal defense. But with this case, what's happening is we're looking at post-conviction rights. What does the defendant have post-conviction? So right now he has the potential to say, I have appeal rights, or hey, there's new evidence that came up. You should look at giving me a sentence reduction. So you're looking what's called post-conviction rights. What can he do to either get a sentence reduced, it overturned, or something of that nature. I don't know what the timeline is in that state for a retrial. I think it's probably too far, but he's probably going to look at what are my appeal rights now that there's new evidence or new witnesses came forward or there's conflicting testimony. So he basically has to go to an appellate judge that oversees that trial judge and say, hey, yes, because this new evidence came out, you should take it back to court and retry it with this new evidence, which that'd be a lot of state money. Or to say, no, because this was not properly used or there's a violation of laws, or a lot of times what defense lawyers do is say, hey, my defense lawyer made a mistake and I had basically malpractice. I didn't have a good defense attorney. They should have interviewed this extra security guard, and that should have been presented at my trial. That would have gotten me off, right? Or whatever the case was. So, he's going to look at what his post-conviction rights are as far as appeal, sentence reduction, and or if there's ways to get things, dismissed, or if he had, improper malpractice by his attorney.
Okay.
That's what he would be looking at.
Because I know also, whether you want to call them fans of Tories or fans of Megs, what people don't realize in that situation, she didn't necessarily go to the police to get him locked up.
Right. So in that situation, Meg was a victim of the state, like just how Cassie's a victim in Diddy's state. And so it's the state that's prosecuting these cases. And that's what I tell people when I've represented men and females, as defendants in domestic violence cases is, you can say, I don't want to prosecute, or I'm not going to cooperate, and then the state can continue to prosecute it just based on the evidence or the photos or things like that, because it's the state prosecuting on behalf of the people that they, want to make our streets and homes safer. So that's, whether Megan cooperated or not, the state could have picked up and prosecuted this case, and she has to be subpoenaed, to participate because she's the victim. Right.
Okay. So I think, a lot of different evidence and things of that nature came out. So we'll see where, in the next month or so, what things happen. So going to the Diddy case now. Right. All right. So with Diddy's situation, just looking at it from the outside and your legal expertise, but I'm still going to ask a question with this. Does it seem strange that when we're talking about what actual trafficking is versus, say, an artist has females come out, they're kicking it in the studio and that things of nature, they might go on a date or something, or they have fun, you might make sure she's straight, give her a couple dollars or something like that. Does that seem conflicting to you versus the people who may be actually trafficked in those cases? Because a lot of artists are looking at it like, Lil Boosie had something to say about it. Right. But does that seem kind of conflicting to you? Because, that's a lot of people's livelihoods in the industry. That's how they move. Right. So this is not legal advice. I'm trying. Not legal advice, y'all. But, as a former criminal defense attorney, as an entertainment and sports lawyer, this is heartbreaking to see what I think was a horrible domestic violence situation played out in a criminal and federal court that's taking a lot of taxpayers' money. So I don't know what this prosecutor saw, and it's even unfortunate that if Cassie, and I'm using the word extort, because $20 million or whatever the number she got before trial, and in this case is still going criminal, it's a lot of things that I'm scratching my head as just like a layperson, like how does this happen? And just as a criminal defense attorney, so because statute of limitations might have passed on a domestic violence case, or the victim didn't want to cooperate and go to the police, I think they've taken a lot of, and we don't know what they have. Like, I'm not in the courtroom, there's no cameras allowed in federal court, so we're getting second, third, fifth hand, it's social media knowledge. So it's really hard for me not to comment when I'm
as a criminal defense attorney, but and it just sway one way. But I feel like it's a lot of smoke, right? We know what happens in the industry, but again, what I feel like they're trying to say is sex trafficking. There could be different states sex trafficking. So I'm a Florida-based attorney, right? New York has different laws, and then they also have different federal laws, right? So they could file with a state charge with federal time, or they could just have different federal charges.
Right.
So that's
okay.
why I think this case, they were honing in on some of the money things, to trump up a RICO case or some of the arson. But my concern with even those, to make them federal and make it look way worse than it probably is in individual situations and even in context of it being a horrible workplace environment for people, it doesn't sit right with what everything we have. So I'm curious to see how this jury will decide, and I hope they're not swayed by evidence that does not fit what he's being charged with.
Right.
And what I also see and find funny is a lot of these federal laws, it takes 2 or more people to conspire to do a RICO charge, 2 or more people to conspire to do an arson, and where is the other co-defendants in this case? And that's usually so common in federal cases, is there's 1 or 2 or more people that are, indicted, and then one person rules on the other. It was a deal. The other person's testifying against the other. So, the fact that Cassie was able to get a civil judgment, this is still in trial, right? And there don't appear to be any other co-conspirators that were charged or took a plea deal to cooperate. This is a very interesting case for entertainment for all defense. I'm curious to see what happens.
Because to be honest with you,
and I don't want to make light of anything. I'm one of those domestic violence survivors, so it's horrible things would happen, but social media and people's lifestyle, there's a cost that comes to everything. And if people can send it to certain things, let it be their private business. And if a prosecutor had a hard nose on for whatever, there's a lot of time and things that have been exhausted by this case. And they're, like you first brought up, there are real victims of sex trafficking that are happening in bathrooms, truck stopping places,
different countries,
different countries, and hotels. So, the amount of money that they spent prosecuting this case, when they probably could have saved thousands, or not tens of thousands of girls, makes me want to really look at our criminal justice system and our courts, and how even us as experts in law are being utilized, right?
Right.
Where are we putting our resources?
And then not only that, because us as African Americans, Black Americans, that may be in the entertainment industry, it's like, is this really about justice, or is this something that is stereotypical about how they treat us in this country?
So this goes to my point on how I got into criminal defense, is because a lot of my entertainers and athletes were, what I feel, were being over prosecuted or unjustly stopped and arrested. Like, it even happened to my own brother just because he was 6-something as a middle schooler. So, yes, if we even just look at the data alone, just look at the numbers, there are more white Americans here in America, but then there are Black, Browns, and Hispanics that are more prosecuted.
Right.
So just if we look at the Diddy case, where are all the other perpetrators and sex traffickers, and where's their exposure, and where their liability for doing this, and why is there so much attention on Diddy? But again, this is television, social media. Celebrities put themselves in these limelight, so when they do something bad, it gets exposed that much greater. But
I agree.
I'm hopeful that the scales of justice are blind, and the jurors that actually are the deciding factor will really look at the facts based on what the law is, and if there's not a fit, then hopefully he'll be acquitted or not guilty or whatever the courts decide.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, that's why I haven't spoken on it too much, because it's just certain things, like you said, just I'm scratching my head about. You know what I mean? Right. And that's the biggest thing. You have charges that says enterprise, but there's only one person being charged. So I kind of find that a little strange. So that's why I was glad to able to kind of ask you that. I've
always had that argument, because I've been involved in cases where there's been other killings, and as a personal injury attorney, we look at who's liable, who has the money, who has the insurance. So when I look at entertainment as a whole, when rappers are getting killed, I'm like, these record labels are funding these advances in these lifestyle that is funding these killings of these kids.
Yeah.
Who's going to hold these record labels liable for the environments they're creating, right? And that's why I think a lot of their contracts, or something you said in another video, is why record labels are like, you're not my employee and I'm not your employer, so you can't sue us for workplace harassment, or you can't sue me for a hostile work environment,
exactly.
Right? But there needs to be some mechanism where they're teaching these kids better financial responsibility. Our music's not put in this, kill, drill music, rap culture. We've glorified criminals. Like,
true.
No disrespect to Big Meech, but you ain't make it. You went on the road. Like, that, you did not, like, you ain't win. Like, they got 10, 20 years of your life. So why is we, as our community, why do we, or even in music, why do we glorify, things that harm us? And that's why we have to change, our psychology of music, which, and our expectations as consumers, and that hopefully will drive the record labels in the industry to make better quality music. Like, we can spend millions on meditation music and heal us and make us calm and zen, but if we, bumping out Chicago, drill and kill music and all this, and then we get indicted off a rap lyric, come on. Like, there's no balance of freedom of speech versus what, if we're gonna follow the law, but also if we're gonna hold ourselves accountable.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because
save this video, because if I ever go missing,
I got you. Don't even worry about it.
We're all part of the problem, so that's why as much as I'm talking stuff, pointing fingers at myself and holding myself accountable. Like, I've represented people that I might not agree with their music. You know what I'm saying? I've done things that have maybe not still on my moral, what I stand for, but and trying to help other people's careers and businesses. So it's all on us to create change and better for our environments.
Right. But see, I'm glad you brought that up, because I've seen people for a while now talk about Vlad TV or Adam 22, people like that, the No Jumper podcast. So certain people think Vlad and Adam 22 and stuff that they cover is like what you just said. They'll have them come on, just talk about criminal activities, things of that nature, get them to talk about certain things that could mess them up. While you got other people on the other side saying they, like, it's just music, but at the same time, you have to worry about getting indicted and all of that because of your music.
Big Brother is real. Like, like, police can do their job from their bed behind a computer, because y'all gonna post about it, y'all gonna tell about it, y'all gonna tweet it, then y'all gonna sell it, y'all gonna put it in a Facebook group. You know what I'm saying? That's why people get caught, because y'all know how to shut up. You know what I'm saying? And now with social media, snitches could get a platform and get a whole crew indicted or killed. You know what I'm saying?
You ain't lying about that.
So, I think we have to be, just period, you have to be cautious of what platforms you're getting on and speaking on. That's why I've been cautious what I say and what I do and how I do it and what I'm saying yes to. And who you're just getting in business with, because audio can be edited, got AI, like, you know what I'm saying? There's so many ways, like, to make things not look the part, but then you also just have to be, you never know, people could be paid from the feds, you know what I'm saying? The CIA,
COINTELPRO like a mug.
Right, so it just makes their job that much easier, once you're putting stuff on the internet, and you can scrub your phone and the internet or put something on a VPN, man, it's still there.
But check this out, because on that note, like I was saying, some people think that that Vlad and all those people should be careful and conscious of the stuff that they ask them. They think they're setting them up. But at the same time, just like you said, you have people that, if you're from the streets for real, like, we got to go back to the old school. If you're from the streets for real, you understand you don't get on camera and talk about nothing. Now, they make it seem like it's okay to get on music and say whatever they want. But I don't think, like you said, in our culture, we don't realize how serious it is now.
At one time, it was acceptable to say, kill, shut, bang, and do this.
Yeah.
But if you even look 20 years before that, it wasn't. Like, look at Public Enemy, look at Tupac. Like, they had black political people trying to stop talking about it, and they're talking about social injustice and oppression,
Right.
So there's always been controversy over suppressing art and music, right? And just our First Amendment rights. And that's really what justice is. That's what's happening now, I feel like, with this administration. They're trying to tighten down all of our constitutional rights, right? And privatize everything, So, we have to fight back and sue back to say, like, hey, no, free the people. These are our rights. We need to be liberated. We need to be free. So it's always been, you know, this tussle with controlling music and what should be said and what should be not said. But I think that's when it comes to what is our conscious fabric? You know what I'm saying? Which, if we figure that out in music, that should permeate to our businesses. That should permeate to our court system. So, you know, law is the slowest thing to change, right? So that's why we have to be so careful with them passing all these laws. Like, we're in Florida. DeSantis just passed 80 laws that come into effect, I think, July 1st. 80 laws. And he's been doing this the past 4 terms. And he's going to be up election again and do it another, you know, time.
Right.
So, like, if no one's suing back and fighting back, then we got 80 more laws on top of 80 more laws we have from that before, on top of all the hundreds of years, right? It's like we already have things on the books to take care of things. But if we keep needing more laws and laws, and keep sending more people to prison, when it's really like prison's not making people shoot less or kill more. You know,
that's true.
You know, what's going on in society and economy is like making this okay.
Also, I'm thinking about another thing when you bring up laws and stuff like that, because I'm gonna talk about briefly the video I made the other day. Okay. Y'all make sure y'all check that out. I'm gonna have that in the description link as well. I'm gonna have the first video that me and Shannon Ligon did in the description link, so make sure y'all check that out. So, like I said, I'm seeing artists think that when they get with a record label, that's their boss. And I'm telling people, like, no, you're basically in a partnership. Some people see it as a bank that you're getting a loan from. So, in recent times, has there been any laws that's changed when it comes to, as well, streaming music and how much an artist is supposed to get paid with the labels? Like, has there still been a big tug of war with that going on?
Yeah, I think it's always a tug of war. Like, laws change every day. So what we're seeing now, 2025, is we're seeing like more partnership deals, and it's a little bit more favorable. Not that it's all the way favorable, right? Because record labels are in business to make people stars and make money. But now with even like the government getting into black box royalties and seeing reversion rights for artists, saying like, hey, yes, you signed away your copyright to this label, but if it was pre-1976, you got an opportunity to get it back, right? Or to say, like, yes, you might have signed away your recording rights, but your pub, you can still get 50-50 because you wrote it. You can't contract that away. So we're seeing a balance, but then I think, you know, you're combating with the internet and social media. So as much as more laws are created to help protect artists and create more money for them, you know, it's battling against the internet. So again, laws slow to change. So with the internet and social media, they put up apps and things every day, right? So, you know, that rainfall of money, it's more buckets that we're having to create to collect it. So we're just having to be smarter and register our music and make sure we have our song split agreements, you know, so we can enforce takedowns and things like that before AI goes and rips off our greatest hit and adds, you know, an extra beat or extra bar to it to say, oh, this is original work and I made something new and I get to own it and file it, right?
What you see, they're doing a lot of commercials for now, pushing a lot of these AI apps.
I think Drake just dropped an AI challenge or direct his video something. Something. So, I mean, you know, I'm not against it, but I'm also like, you have to have the right parameters and guardrails on it, right? And two, like, somebody has to tell it what to do. So it's always like,
yeah, and it's like they're stealing from other like real artists.
It's really,
because I mean, if you put in an artist's name or sample something, they come and try to redo something. Like say if it's kind of like an interpretation. You do it that way, but they're not making sure they go file the paperwork source, like a producer would have to.
So that's why I think, you know, data is going to be so important. Those zeros and ones or those barcodes, right? Because there is a way, like, if they can control, if they can put data in a song we hear on the radio, I'm sure they can put data in a song we play on the internet, right?
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
So it's, again, like, who's creating it? Who's really worried about paying artists the most? It's not the record labels and the publishing companies, right?
Right.
They're working on making more and getting whatever their split is, right? And, you know, that's why they just collect pots of money and hope y'all come back and figure it out to collect it. So, you know, again, I think the more artists become business savvy, tech savvy, and then two, you know, with the internet, there's been a better balance. Like, you can go viral, make a hit song, put a video out, and you have YouTube, and I can collect everything. And there's a greater push and allowance for independency because of the internet and social media.
Right.
So you just have to, you know, still, I think, be a business person. You know, like, it's still a business. I still got to know how to push sales and marketing to get streams and collab deals and things like that.
Right. And that's what I think is most important while I'm interviewing you and I'm going to do other ones, because it's a lot of artists don't know what to do. They don't know the structure, you know, like the whole important four food groups that you need,
Right.
you know, in your diet, which is, you know, needing a good manager, needing a good entertainment lawyer, needing, you know, all of those things.
Right.
So, for as moving forward, right? What is it that you? Because we talked about this before. What is it that you want to also bring for artists to like actually help artists?
So what I really focus on is educating my clients so you guys know, yes, you can hire me to set up your business, your record label, make the contracts, but I really focus on teaching you what these clauses say so you'll know how this impacts you, right? Or if you hire me to draft a management contract, I give it to you editable so you can use it for the next person you want to manage, and then you know how to change the terms and the name, and then you say, Attorney Ligon, well, they don't want a renewal right. You know, you're just having me review and not draft from scratch. So I'm big on educating because I've learned the smarter my clients are, the smarter we make each other, the bigger business we can do. But if I'm sitting here trying to tell everybody to copyright their music, step number one, and we over here selling catalogs for millions of dollars, we ain't ever gonna sell catalogs for billions of dollars if you know we can't understand the basics. So
Right.
I'm leaning into education, understanding it, protecting your art, your work, and then profiting off of it. Like, how do we make money? And two, I see and hear so many great artists and producers. Like, we need to get collaboration over competition. Like, your music is not making anybody any money sitting on your keyboard or just on your little
Right.
page if you're not out pushing it or letting it get placed or letting people songwrite to it. So collaborate, but also go back to the first part. Educate yourself and protect yourself, because we love when people steal when it's registered, because then I can go and sue you and get more money. So,
Right.
Yeah, so I would just say lean into the education, understanding the business. Like, you become your own guru or expert, right?
Right.
So that's what people pay me for, because I've been studying this stuff 20 plus years, and what it takes them 2 years to learn, I know in 20 seconds, because I do it for a living and done it so long. So, but you also want to become your own expert or hire the people that are your own experts. That's why lawyers cost so much, because we know when it's a bad deal, when it's a good deal, when it's the right amount of money, or when it's not the right amount of money. Experienced ones, not just, you know, newbies. But I think that's important with, you know, knowing your team, right? And you always constantly elevating yourself and others around you so you can grow.
Right. Okay. That's good to know, because like I tell you all the time, I talk to artists I know, and I think the biggest thing is we're so spoon fed microwave generation now, where it's I just put my music on Facebook, YouTube, boom, it's gonna blow up.
Right.
And until I started hitting real numbers and views, I used to do the same thing a little bit. I put a video up or something, and I get like 50 views. I'm like, oh man, I'm on my way.
Right.
So.
No one taught us. I was just having a conversation with myself. I said, no one taught us how to be salespeople. Right? Like, I'm a lawyer, but nobody taught me how to run a business of a law firm. I'm one of the few that actually I have a business degree, or I worked a little bit before then.
Right.
So that's what happens to artists. Like, we're so focused on the craft or how to make a good beat or how to make a good song. We're not thinking like, okay, I need to figure out how to make 10,000 songs a year. I'm worried about placing one song. No, figure out how to make 10,000 so you get 100 songs placed, right? Or even not placed. You just put it on there and they're making money. So I think we have to like reframe things and really understand the core concepts of business: creation, marketing, sales, finance, management. You know, we have to understand core business concepts. So whether I'm selling a song off my phone, a song that used to be in a tape or CD, it's the same concept: creation. How do I market it? How do I sell it? You know, how do I place it? And all of those concepts. So I think, you know, understanding business basics is important, and then that can help you navigate things. So we understand, like, okay, even content creators. There was a guy I was mentoring in a DM, and I need to take my own advice when I lean into it. But I said, focus on making 10 videos a week, then make 100 videos a week, then make 1,000. Now he has 1 point something odd million followers, and it's just on content. And he ain't even a guru in the field. He just made more content than everybody else.
Oh yeah, gets his hustle on.
That's why old school model content is king. So, you know, also on the flip side, you have to have discernment on what content you're listening to, right? You just can't listen to everybody and do what such and such did before you. Just because such and such put a song on Facebook and it went viral, that's not going to work for you.
Right.
Like, however, it can go viral if you know, okay, well, I'm gonna put an ad spin up of $10 a day, and my song sounds like these 3 artists, so I'm gonna go attack their fan base on these 3 platforms, and that is a marketing strategy. That's a sales strategy, right? But you just throwing something on Facebook to your 400 Facebook fans. That's no strategy. Only less than 10% of them are gonna see it, and less than 1% are gonna like it. And half the time, the people that buy your product aren't your friends and family anyway.
And you know what's so crazy about that? That's true. But you know what's so crazy about that? I think with everything that you just named, a lot of people get overwhelmed. Artists do. Like when I was a young artist, I'm thinking, man, how I'm gonna do this? What's percentage? What is? But
you
what I mean?
Overwhelmed. It just goes back to my question. Where's your business plan?
Right.
We get overwhelmed because we don't have a plan.
True.
Like I'm not here in my 15th, 16th year of business by happenstance. Like I have a business plan I made when I was in law school to figure out how to make $1 million. So I know how much sales it needs to make, how many other lawyers I need to make, how many, so that when I'm looking at like, dang, it's a slow year, slow month. Yeah, it's because I'm not following the plan. I didn't scale the business. I hired 3 more Shannon Ligons and 2 more paralegals.
Right.
But then I also got to the point like, I don't want to do all this and I'm doing other things to make money. So we get overwhelmed because we don't have a plan, right? And then when you have a plan, you got to sit down and go back and readjust it. So that's why I'm big on goals. If you ask me, what do people come to me for? It's goals. Like I have a goal sheet I sell. Hopefully put it in the comments. But I really use it with the artists. So you come up with your personal mission statement. I make them come up with their 1-year plan, their 5-year plan, their 10-year plan. Because we're creatives. They're going to come on me 20 things on Monday, 15 new things by Friday. And I'm like, you just said you wanted to focus on making music that impacted positive youth. And you over here made 10 songs on drill music, got a clothing line that has guns, so it's like, go back to your core mission. And that's why you're all over the place. Because you over here trying to do what the Chicago gangbangers doing and over here trying to get city and grant money for $20,000 for making a positive song. Like the mission isn't matching the input or output. So that's why it's important for us to have a personal mission and vision statement for us and as a brand and a business, and then also have goals. So then I know why it's not working because I'm off the plan, right? And then so now you got to readjust the plan. Like nobody planned for COVID, right? So then that's why people said, I'm gonna sit down and do in-home songs and videos and record all that. And I've seen 3 artists I can name right now. I just saw them broke off COVID for trying something new. So again, you got to think outside the box a little bit and really have to have a plan.
And I would ask you, because I've been kind of like thinking about this. So what do you say to somebody who's getting overwhelmed and they want to hire somebody? My thing was always, how do you get somebody to understand ways to move that when you hire somebody, it's got to be somebody you can trust. So knowing your business, of course, having an entertainment lawyer and all that, is there any way you can kind of tell an artist or somebody that has to do those things where they're not going to be in control of everything, where they get the manager, the lawyer? How would they go about making sure the person that they hire know that they're serious, but at the same time you don't want to get taken advantage of? Which sounds difficult, I know, if you don't know what you need to know.
Right. I mean, it's hard in business. I've gotten burnt by people I trusted and lawyers that have paperwork. I mean, you're the sharkest of the sharks. So, you can't let someone's title like dictate the relationship, and vet people as much as you can. Like I'm really strong on word of mouth and referral. That's why you'll probably never see me on a billboard. Don't mass market like that in entertainment. Like you basically have to get referred to me or know me. That's why I barely even have a website.
Right.
I want to make sure I want you to be my client. Like I have that type of leverage now. So, and it's an energy thing. So I really say focus on the relationship too. Like don't be such in a rush to go sign and get a manager. What the hell do you even have to manage? That's why I tell people, if you ain't making 6 figures or $250,000, I'm not going to consider managing you, because it's, so you need business to manage. So one, we can't just, say this term loosely, jump in bed with everybody so quickly and get to know people and build a relationship. And that cuts down on a lot of getting burnt, right? I have friends in Industry Connects. I was just booked DJ Nasty for something. And I was like, I know this ain't your budget, but please just like for this movie. And because of my relationship, he was able to do it. And luckily, he wasn't spitting at Liv or on the road with DJ Khaled or Beyonce or something.
Right.
But just me, I look back, I was like, dang, I've known him over 15 years. That's why I was able to do it. I've always done good business. I've kept a good name. So I think find other people they work for, get their experience, right? And just, if you could feel people out through conversations and see what they've done in their past. A good indicator of someone's future is what they've done in their past. But then also you can't you know, those little whippersnappers in college or the little IT kids. Like, you can learn a lot from kids too. So, and interns.
Okay.
So think creative, you know, too. You can get an internship, you know, or outside of just paying somebody outright, there's other ways you can work with people too.
Because I was thinking one way that could help a person to understand, like, okay, maybe this person is trustworthy is, say I come to you and we're talking business or whatever, right? And then you don't get upset and you're willing to be put to the test to show that you're about your business and you're trustworthy. Like, that's one thing I think about. If I was to try to deal with somebody business-wise and I ask certain questions, like you said, you know, just vetting and things of that nature, I would think they would be willing to be put to the test.
Yeah, I think on both, especially, you know, it just depends on the relationship. Like, I'm a hard person to work for and work with because I expect a lot. And I kind of know, like, this one athlete I was managing, which makes me always question if I'll ever manage another female because it's hard, right?
Right.
You know, women we're different. But it wasn't any untrustworthy stuff. I was just so focused on the business. You know, like, why you always have free products and clothes when they got a 20 grand brand ambassador? Like, I'm like, this is,
oh, wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like, this, like, that's why I had to quit. You weren't about the business. You know what I'm saying? So, but, you know, that wasn't a mistrust thing, but it might have been, you know, mistrust too, because she was like, this girl's so aggressive, I don't want to work with her, and I rubbed her the wrong way, which that's fine. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I said you have to figure out the relationship and personality with people too, you know, and that might not have been a good fit at that time because she was new to the industry, but now, you know, 5-10 years later, she probably coming back like, man, I need a pit bull like that. So, you know, you got to find the right match for you.
Right.
It's all timing. And I've seen the best of relationships. Like, I'm not the lawyer for everybody either. That's why I tell you, like, you know, if I'm not the right fit, I get you the right person that can. So knowing that about yourself too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I appreciate your time, and also we got more things we're gonna be working on, stuff like that, because I want y'all to be able to see certain things that from a lawyer's perspective that you may not be thinking about on a professional level. So before we get out of here, I want you to go ahead and let them know all your handles where they can contact you at, especially the serious inquiries.
All right. Hey everybody, I'm attorney Shannon Ligon. I go by That's My Lawyer. You can find me across all social medias at That's My Lawyer. However, if you're ever in a jam and need Shan, you can reach me at my law firm at 888-779-SHAN. That's 888-779-7426. Or log on to prettysmartlaw.com. And I have a merch and branding company, so if you want to shop smart, shop prettysmart.com. Thanks.
All right, we appreciate you.
Thank you.
We out.
Check me out.